Please note, this episode discusses topics related to alcohol and drug addiction, including relapse. The content may be sensitive or triggering for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Producer Connie Monroe is a multifaceted talent in the industry. Alongside producing her own content, she has served as the senior casting producer for A&E's Intervention and has worked as a field producer for over 10 seasons. In addition, she has assisted with the series Cold Justice, working closely with law enforcement agencies nationwide to identify viable cold cases for hopeful re-examination and conviction. Connie's advice: keep a sense of humor and stay mentally and emotionally healthy. This is True Crime in Hollywood, Connie's personal tale. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say hi, Connie, and thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. So, Connie, you and I connected through my workshop, but then we had this wonderful, amazing conversation because come to find out, you are a senior casting producer for Intervention, which is a show that's been on for quite some time. So I am so excited to be having this conversation with you first and foremost. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for asking me to be on. I was thrilled. I did your workshop and I was floored. I was just like, this is an amazing conversation, ethics and production.
Yeah, it's huge.
Dot.
Exactly. Right.
Like, okay. Right. All right. Good luck out there, everybody.
Exactly. So I think one of the questions that most people probably ask you is, how did you get your start in this industry, but within like the true crime realm?
True crime realm kind of fell into my lap. I kind of always say I Forrest Gumped myself into this.
Yeah.
I have a very good friend, co-producer, that we've worked together for years, and she was a field producer on Intervention. And I was between jobs. Pretty much an actress and a writer and a singer. And yeah, so it's just like I always cast my own projects. And they kind of deal with some dark issues, more human stories. And she was like, "Do you want to cast for Intervention?" And I was like, "No." It's like, oh my God, no. But then I thought about it, I was like, wow, that would be terrifying, yet really, really good work. So I went in and I interviewed, and I think what got me the most clout in the room in the interview was that I taught middle school and high school.
Mm.
And they were like, if you can do that and survive and still smile, you can do anything. And I was like, and then, 10 seasons later, we're still going strong. So, yeah, so that has led to other opportunities, but GRB and Intervention are basically my home. It's my home plate.
Remarkable. So how did you know the job was for you by the time that you started in it?
It was the first day. It was the very first day. We went into the executive producer's office. We were looking through submission tapes, and it still hits me. There was this interview from a woman, a mom, and she was talking about the family situation and what was going on. And then she just kind of stopped and she just paused and she goes, "Alcohol has destroyed my entire family." And I was just like, ugh, it hurt. It just hurt. And that was 10 years ago. And I still like, oh my God, it hurt so bad. And I got up and I left the room. And they're like, "You think she's coming back?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just, I washed my face in the bathroom and I was just like, these people need help. These are real true cries for help. And for whatever reason, I'm in this room. I've been called to the mission, and I think it's made me want to stay. I mean, it's not all, like, oh my God. It's like we laugh so hard because you have to. I mean, it is just like some of the ridiculous moments, and just, they're broken people, but they're some of the most incredibly brilliant, gifted individuals who are just looking for help.
And you bring a really important point of that. Something I think that gets lost in translation when we're talking about these shows that we produce is the human aspect of it behind the scenes, that these types of scenarios can affect someone like yourself. So I think that's important for people to hear, that you can still remember that very first day and that very first call. So that's really, really, really interesting. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Can you describe that initial process, though, of booking someone for the series, but then how that progresses from that contact all the way through the filming stage?
Well, it's interesting. It's a process. Like we have like at the end of every episode, there's a link, submit your loved one. So families do reach out. We also do outreach through, different social media platforms, looking for people who want to share their story in a documentary. Our subjects, our candidates, they do not know who we are. Period. They just really don't. And the families, of course, know because they know if this were to go through, if the stars align, their family is scholarshiped a 90-day out of state top tier, recovery center, which I can't afford that.
Most
That's
Americans.
amazing. It's amazing. So families will really, really jump through the hoops to help us. And once we identify a story that's going to fit the parameters for production, because that's a huge piece. Is this something that we can send a crew to and really produce? Is this something that the family is going to be involved? Because we're very, very cautious. If a person is going to go through the documentary and agree to treatment, is the family going to also be on board to examine their own lives and their own, their own spoon or ladle in the pot. It's not just one person. And they call it a family disease. I always thought it was like, oh yeah, we're talking about genetics. Like, no.
Yeah.
We're talking about the storm in the living room, every night. So yeah, it's an intervention on the whole family. The one person goes to treatment, but everybody else really needs to be on board to want to make changes so that when this person comes home, they're not coming into the same situation. We've had people that don't return home, that just, if I want to stay sober, if I want to stay clean, I can't be part of that. And so that's a difficult process as well. But as far as the casting process, we'll find a family and a candidate and start the interviews, and it's really gearing like what the situation is, how involved is the family, is there something that we can do to help? A lot of times, if it's a dual diagnosis, we may not be able to. Finding facilities, that's another huge component. Because we gear the facility specifically to that candidate and what their addiction are, what their past traumas are, and it's a lot of layers to it, a
Yeah.
lot of layers, And I would say from getting a submission to getting it through our production side, getting it into like a network approval is at least a month.
Yeah.
So it's not, and we are always, it's the urgency that we feel in production, from like the PAs to all the way up to the top, to executive producers, showrunners, because we know we're not casting shoe wars. God bless Closet Wars. It's a lot of fun. We have lives on the line, and people, they run away, they disappear, the families drop out, or in the meantime, they may OD in the middle of casting. And we never leave a family without resources. If it's something we can't move forward with, then we do our best to get them the resources they need in their area.
Truly, I don't know too many productions that have that kind of setup. And I mean, for this particular series, it makes sense. But yeah, and that kind of leads me into my next question. What are some things people may not know or realize goes on behind the scenes, even though you gave such a great scope of that right now? But what else?
I think a lot of it is the camaraderie of the team. They always say, like, it's a little backbiting in Hollywood. It's just like it can be, everybody's vying for, to get the story, to get, to have the leads and everything like that. But we're not like that. It's a true team. Like we can't function without each other. And like you said at the beginning, it's just like, yeah, I remember that first conversation, but I also remember who was in that room. And I can pick up that phone anytime and call any one of those people. And we're still really a tight knit group, and a lot of it is you think you're just casting. You're not casting. You're just not casting. You become, a counselor for families, for candidates, for each other. We just laugh. It's just like we'll sit down for lunch. It's like, do you believe she said that? It's like, what the hell is
Yeah.
going on? You know, it's like, well, yeah, not to be mean, but if that were my mom, I'd use to.
Right. Right. And you're dealing with such personal stories where it's like this is real time. This is also a real concern for this individual too. So I think on top of you having that support with your team, including the family and all those participants, like that's a lot to carry as a person, I would imagine. So how does that affect you as a producer, wearing your producer hat and then wearing human hat? How do those two things coexist?
They're the same.
Mm.
I think if you wear different hats, you're not gonna, with this show, I think you're not going to be successful. I think the key to casting this show particularly is keeping that human hat on.
Mm.
People aren't going to trust me
Yeah.
if I go in with this like, okay, like it's so like I get this kind of like seedy feeling like when you're like, oh, she's a producer. It's like, oh God.
Too. I mean, knowing as a producer myself, I mean, like, oh, you're calling from what,
What? Oh, yeah, like, ugh. Like you kind of get this kind of ugh. So, I really, shy away from saying I'm a producer. I really do. It's weird. It's just weird. But, it gets families to trust me. But I think as far as like, yeah, you have to go in the field. I've been in the field. I've been casting in the field. I've been under bridges in Kensington. I've been in the Bluff in Atlanta. I've been downtown LA, walking over bodies and seeing little 3-year-olds play hopscotch, and like not having a clue. And that affects me. That truly, truly, like, oh, it just hurts. But I know that I'm doing a good job. I know that, hopefully somebody will get out and it's a ripple effect. But yeah, as a producer, you gotta like bite the bullet and it's gritty. I was in a storage unit with a girl blowing meth in my face.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, we gotta go. I think let's call lunch, okay? Because it's like I'm getting a little like, oh, okay. But that's the job.
That's the
You
job.
That's the
Right.
job. Now, the wonderful thing about GRB and intervention and the team is that they do provide for the entire, staff, therapy. Yeah, yeah, like they'll pay for it. Like people come back in from the field, and that's intense work in the field,
Yeah.
like in the moment, and it's just like you're dealing with so many layers of chaos and trauma, and just it's in your face, but you have a camera and you're not allowed to react.
Yeah. Yeah. That. You have
Mhm.
a camera, you can't react, and you have to hold it in. And I think that's the other hard part of being a producer too, is where you're also ingesting all of this trauma in a rapid speed. And then you're supposed to be like, okay, now I'm in work mode. And so it's like, how do you find those balances? So how do you like disconnect, I guess, from work? Like after you're done with your day, what does your day look like?
I hike a lot. California, LA County is amazing. There's a lot of free stuff to do, if you take the 101, you can scream in traffic and they just think it's road rage, and they'll leave you alone. It's like, oh God, pull away from that car. She's insane. Um, and I am. But just kind of like I've always had a really strong faith base. I've always had a really good core and sense of self. And coming home, it's like, I'll go hiking, I'll swim, I'll do some yoga, just a stretch, just to get like that out. This show's not for everybody. I've seen phenomenal casting producers just, not be able to wrap their head around it, and get too involved because that I think that goes back to being a producer. At the end of the day, I have my own family.
Yes.
I am not the cause of this situation. I am a possible solution in a bucket of solutions. They've reached out to us for help. We're going to do our best to do whatever we can. And I have to keep that in mind that, we're not Superman. We don't fly through with a cape. We can't wave a magic wand and solve all these people's problems. These have been going on for probably generations.
Right.
This is where they are now. So we are just a possible solution in the bucket of life.
I would imagine there are people that have stuck with you, whether that be, figuratively or literally, that you still check in with them. What is that like?
It's interesting because there are people. I mean, there's people that I will never forget. It's good because I like to know that they're doing okay. And if they're not doing okay, how can I get them back on the path? There was a girl that we worked with that lived pretty close by to me. And, not that she knew where I lived, but I know where she lived under a bridge. And like she had run, she ran during the intervention. She ran. And her mom reached out. And so, found out that she was pregnant and living under a bridge in North Hollywood. So I went rogue and I went and got her. And the team just knew who to call, what phone numbers. So we were able to get her down to San Diego, so that she could have the baby safely. And she's doing pretty good. She's in and out. She struggles. She's young. I think it's the ones that I chase the most. Yeah, there's one guy I chased him literally through the tunnels of Las Vegas for almost 6 months because
Goodness.
I heard about his family's story through outreach in Vegas, and I was like, I'm finding that kid.
Yeah.
And we
Wow.
did. And we did. We really did.
That's intense.
It
That's
is intense, but I like it. I think I've always been, I think I'm undiagnosed ADHD, you know.
I was for years until I was like, oh wait, I really do have it.
Oh,
But
wait, like, oh, okay. But it works for me.
you make it into your superpower at times.
Yes, my superpower. And I think the superpower is just empathy and tenacity. And because everybody's like, how can you go into these places? It's like, I don't know. I'm not afraid. I told one executive producer over at a large network a couple of years ago. He was talking to us. I said, "Well, look at me as Mary Poppins has a knife and she's going to use it."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh,
This genre is so it's open to so many different variations and how you do it. But I think just like you said, it's not for everyone. And you have to like hone in where you can. So, why do you think it's important for a show like Intervention to be renewed for years to come?
well, I think it's important." Tell the story of addiction so that families are not isolated. I think in and of itself, addiction is isolation. You're shutting yourself off from the world. You're shutting yourself off from your family, from everybody. And you're poisoning your body, you're poisoning your brain, you're poisoning your heart. People who deal with family members, they just feel so alone. Like nobody, you can't go to the garden club and talk about, Johnny, because nobody wants to hear it. Nobody knows how to help. Shows like Intervention are just so important because it makes people understand what addiction is, what it looks like. And it's anybody's family. It doesn't matter if you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth or you're crawling out from under a rock, it's just everybody, especially with, fentanyl, car fentanyl, everything's laced, it's just everybody's affected. I don't think there's one person in the United States who can truthfully say that they have not been affected somehow by the opiate crisis.
Yeah,
I don't, I don't, I don't think there is. You've got to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. I mean, you have to live in a cave if you can say that out loud. So it's important. It's important to show the humanity. We get so used to seeing, news articles, newsreels, like, oh, this homeless encampment, this, whatever it is, inner city angst across the country. And we just get so oblivious and just so numb to like seeing this constantly that it's just so important to understand that these are families. This is somebody's child. This is somebody's mother. Somebody's, they're us,
yeah,
and it could be anything. I remember I was working on a project in downtown LA and I was interviewing this woman and it was for just, empowering women coming up, and just trying to get out from poverty. And she just turned to me and she goes, every woman, no matter what your status, is 3 bad decisions away from being homeless. And I was like, I thought about it, I was like, oh God,
yeah, yeah.
true. I'm like, damn, like, and that's anybody. Three bad decisions. And
Ugh.
that kind of like put it into perspective. So I think like what you asked, about what's so important about intervention is understanding that nobody wakes up or nobody's born thinking like, hey, I'm going to go smoke some meth today, because that's Drano. Let's put it into perspective. Did you really think you'd get up this morning and take a shot of Drano? Yeah. Sorry.
No, I mean, but it puts it into perspective, and you're so right that you truly addiction can affect anyone and everyone at any given point in time. So that is really important to hit on that because I'm sure there are people and critics out there, who may not view the show that way and may find it salacious or exploitive, but the fact that your team can also back this up with actual resources and support, it's so important for people to know that is a part of this process. So what do you hope to see evolve regarding true crime along with Hollywood, especially for producers who are working with such heavy content and high trauma? Because as you shared, you have therapy services through your team that you have access to. So what do you hope that can open the door to for other production companies and networks?
I hope it works as the model. I'm shocked. I also worked with Magical Elves on Cold Justice, and they're an amazing team. Hats off to them as well because I've been so fortunate. I mean, when I hear horror stories of people like coming off field from different true crime genre types of shows, and it's not that it's like a current, like you're trying to solve this, like it's not a current mystery, it's not a current thing, but you're opening up that can of worms and you're asking people to relive and go through this trauma again and again and again. And like how many interviews you need, to get this. And so from the production side, it's just it's a lot. And like you said, as producers, you're reliving it with them. And so in Hollywood, I really think, it needs to be a budget line. Just write it into the darn budget. We need this. It's like it doesn't cost that much. You can write it off. Just figure out a way to do it because you have to keep your team healthy.
Yes. Keep your team healthy. And that is including mental health. It is mental health because this is a hard job. It is a hard job. So, with that, though, it's also a rewarding job. So, what is the most rewarding aspect of that, but also the biggest challenge you face?
Like the biggest reward is just seeing them thrive,
Mhm.
seeing people thrive. It's like when I was on Cold Justice, we had this story, got approved, they went and filmed it, and everything was going. And I got a call from our executive producer, and she goes, it wasn't the mom. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Because it was just like, you open these doors, you open these cans of worms, and the truth will come out. And you just pray that it's the right truth. It's the good truth. And like the person goes to prison, the person accountable, there's accountability on those kinds of shows. And you just pray to God that, the ripple effect is for good. And I was just like, oh, thank God you didn't do it. It's like, oh God. But then with intervention, it's the success stories. I think it's people learning how to take accountability and responsibility for their lives and just doing it and doing it for themselves and their families and their children and just wanting it bad enough to stay clean, just wanting it that bad. Like we had a story this season, can't say too much, but it was four kids and they all grew up together. And the one guy had his girlfriend, and they all like had been using together for years. And we went in with they're all clean.
Ah,
They're all clean. And she wound up finding out she was expecting a baby when they went to detox her. The baby's fine. The baby's beautiful. Thank God. So it was just like the next generation has been served, and these kids can really move forward. And it gets that's it. It gets the conversation going. If this kid can clean up and stay, and stay straight, why can't I? You
Yeah.
know, it just gives hope. And for the naysayers, I get it. It's like you're taking advantage of these people. It's like, no. Number one, they reached out to us. And no, number two, with or without us, they're still going to use.
Right.
We're offering real hope. We're offering real help.
So, what advice would you give someone who's looking to break into true crime specifically along with this industry? But I know right now we're in a weird world in itself. But what would you say to someone who's at least like, hey, I'm interested in true crime?
I would say watch every show possible. Really study the genre, study the stories, look and then research the stories. Like what is really behind these stories? Like if you do a story on Murdoch, what's the psychology behind everything? Because that's what you're going to be dealing with. It's not like picking up the camera and shooting it and getting, it's like I have to like at 10 o'clock I get barricaded. This is this, blah, blah, blah. Yes, that's the logistics of a production, the human side of going into these shows, into this genre. You just really need to know if that's something you want. Do you have that compassion and that empathy to understand where people are coming from? Because it can get really judgy. I mean, sometimes you're like, for the love of God, just stop. you know, but you can't judge. You can't judge these situations. You're going in to help tell a story, and understanding the psychology of everybody involved is a huge piece. I think it's innate. I don't think it's something you can learn in a textbook. I think it's just something that, like you said, these shows are not for everybody. So if somebody says, "Hey, I'd really love to get into true crime," I'd be like, "That's amazing. That is amazing." Um, but understand, and then see who you can shadow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start networking and getting out on these sets. Sit in on calls, casting calls, because they can be horrific. People are sharing stuff that they haven't shared with anybody ever, and it's the first time they're saying it out loud. So it can get very emotional, and you have to sit there once again and say, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
And you have to process it. I think
yeah,
that's the part that people don't really think about because you're right. You talk to someone, they may have never been asked that question before. Like, what's your story? What happened? And you have to, like I said, you're ingesting that, but you equally have to process it because you also think this is reality too. This is not just a book and someone just said, hey, this is a story I wrote. No, no. So you're right. That is,
yeah.
thank you.
I was training a guy, and I was doing this interview, and it was so intense. I was interviewing a girl who was in a bathroom on her phone in a trap house. I had 911 like ready because it was up like upstate New York. And I just had it ready. And I was just like, okay. And he was like, what are you doing? I said, we're doing the interview. She finally I got a hold of her. We're doing it. And he's like, holy cow, like, are we? I go, and so he was under my desk listening because I didn't want her to know that there was another person, training. That's vile. That's Hollywood. But it's part of the process of production. You have to train this guy. So when we were done, I made sure that she was with her mom. She'd gotten out of the house, and everything was fine. Because at the end of the day, it's not as dangerous as everybody thinks. Like anything could happen in these situations, but at the same time, this is their lives. They're not afraid. We're terrified for people, but they're in their world, and it's a very strange balance,
Yeah.
But the person I was training was floored. He goes, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And how did you get her to share everything she shared? And are you okay? And I
Mhm.
was like, are you okay? He goes, I don't know. And he was like, I don't know. I go, well, this is it. This is it. This is like probably the most extreme. Some are much more simple and straightforward, but some are gnarly.
But again, it's like you have to judge if that's going to be something that you can process through and work through on an everyday basis. And that's like the biggest takeaway is like this isn't just a here and there project. This is your 9 to 5. This is what you're doing Monday through Friday. And so,
This
yeah.
is 24/7. We have phones. We're on call. This is 24/7. And like I said, you have to have a good sense of humor. If you can't laugh, because I was just like, it's like she got better. It's very Monty Python. We got her. It was like,
You have to find that fine balance. And I know law enforcement, does kind of the same thing. They talk about their macabre humor and whatnot, but it's like, what's going to get you through to the next day?
yeah, and you just have to stay balanced. You can't carry it. You have to let go. You have to understand that, again, I did not create this situation. I'm a possible solution. And if you work with me, I can hopefully help you.
We're going to pivot a little bit because I want some people to get like some good suggestions from you. So tell me, what is the most interesting thing you've read or watched recently?
Okay. The movie Thelma.
Yay! That's
It was amazing. I was like, I had the day off and I was like, I will go see independent film any day because those are my people, It's like we're all starving to death, right? Funny because it's number one, it's all shot in the valley. So like it's crazy valley. And then it's, this older lady, navigating her daughter and her grandson, just like, I'm 90 years old, but I'm perfectly fine. Get away from me. And then the helicopter parents and the kid who can't function. It's just like, it's hysterical. And yeah, it's just like, the old lady gets scammed and she's not going to take it. It was great. It was great.
tell me, what is something that you listen to as well? Like, are you a podcast person? Are you into music? What's your go-to?
I'm into music. I was like, I love music. I'm a vocalist, a singer. So I like rockabilly. I can sing anything from Janis Joplin to the Ave Maria. So, so it's just like, just give me the music. I can't do rap. I have no rhythm. I'm horrible. But it's just awful. It's sad. Um, but yeah, I love music. I love classical. I just love to sit. Like I'll blare the cheap tones in my car. That's another thing I do is like if I'm up on the 101 or the 405, I will turn on the Chieftains and just this crazy Irish rebel music and just like and blare it. And everyone's like, okay. Yeah, I'm getting ready to go sing at the Vatican over Christmas.
Hey, come on.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm learning all my Latin, which is almost as bad as rap for me. So
Hard.
it's
Hard.
really
Spanish,
hard.
I'll tell you that.
It's hard. So yeah, music.
Amazing. Now, this is your moment to shout out any local company. And I usually love to say restaurants, bookshops, stores. What's a local place that you would love to give a shout out to?
Oh, I would say shout out to Damon Steakhouse in Glendale, California.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been there since 1937.
Gosh.
I have worked there on and off since 2012, which is
Oh,
great. They are an amazing team because once again, they let me go so I can do production,
yeah.
And they're like, where are you going? I said, I gotta go. I gotta go. And and it's funny because, like I said, everybody's touched by some form of addiction or family struggle, and they're like, they get it. They're like, you go, girl. Just come back safe in one piece, and your job is always here. And like you said, in this production climate, and I've got this weird family of Damons that, will always be there for me.
I love that.
You got to come in.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely going to be a place that I'm going to look into next time I'm out in LA. Connie, thank you again for all of this and for being so vulnerable and sharing this perspective. Like I said, this is so important that we start having this conversation and really breaking down what happens in Hollywood, but specifically in true crime, and really allowing us to get an inside look into what really happens with casting, let alone just intervention and the process that goes, from start to finish. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to learning more about you along the way too, because now I've got to check out this steakhouse. I've got to, get brushed up on my Latin music too. You're
Yeah.
awesome. But oh my gosh, goodness. Thank you
Oh,
so much
oh
again,
my
Connie.
gosh. Thank you. This was such a pleasure. I had so much fun.
Please be sure to tune in next week when I sit down with Julie Murray, Mara Murray's sister, who is hoping to help solve her case that changed her family's life forever. Thank you so much for tuning in to True Crime in Hollywood. And as always, remember the victims and embrace the survivors. Thank you for listening.